There we go. At some point, Windows probably changed the default audio source. It does that occasionally. Because Windows 11 is very good and very not flawed software that, certainly no one has ever, in the history of forever, had a problem with that could be accounted for as anything other than mere skill issue. I miss Linux every day, but can't play Maple on Linux. Stupid kernel level anti-cheat. How's it hanging? How's your spooky day going? I have never actually... So, like, when I was a kid, my family, I guess, wasn't really... You know how you're supposed to, like, leave your porch light on for trick-or-treaters? My mom/grandparents didn't do that. So we never got trick-or-treaters. And then, like, as an adult, even as an adult, I've never really gotten trick-or-treaters. Regardless of whether the light's on or off. But something that blows my mind is I have a friend who, admittedly, she really decorates her yard. Like, her decorations are super fun. There's a lot going on. It's very festive and cute. She apparently gets hundreds of trick-or-treaters. Hundreds. Like, I think last year she said something like over 700, and this year something like over 900, and I was like, oh my goodness. That is so many children. What the fuck? But also it's like the Northeast. The Northeastern US. So there's a very different culture around, like, community and neighborhood stuff, in fairness. So, like, I can't imagine ever seeing that in my neighborhood when I was growing up, but I kind of get it if you live in, like, a big subdivision. That's funny. Yeah, it might also partially be that I moved a lot as a kid. So there were a few places that I lived more than a year, but most of the time we moved like every other year or every year. So I didn't really get to know most of my neighbors. Except when I was pretty young. Like, there was one neighborhood I lived in where I did get to know my neighbors for sure. Okay, now I'm thinking about it, I guess there were 3. No, although several people in my family were military, my, like, immediate family unit didn't have, like, PCSing or anything to worry about. Just being renters, basically. Where, like, this or that would happen, so rather than renewing the lease, we would hop to a new one. It was a single income, though. Single parent household, so it was, like, essentially following move-in deals and stuff. My mom tried buying a place once, but the seller kind of lied about how much renovation was done on it, and so that didn't last all that long. I think we were only there like 2 years. But basically she got scammed. Yeah, of course, the term military brat exists for a reason. But my dad did some Navy time, and my grandfather was a World War II spy who had really interesting stories, but the only, like, immediate thing I have related to that is that because they both served, I had access to USAA for, like, cheap insurance and stuff. Although these days USAA hasn't been treating their customers as well as they used to, so I haven't really used any of their services in a long time, but their renter's insurance was cheap as hell when I was moving to LA, so I was grateful for it. My dad's parents are super interesting. Well, were, but they both lived really long lives. They both passed at, like, around 100. Her whole deal was she really liked reading books, and he really liked listening to the radio. But his hearing got damaged when he was in the service, and her eyes eventually developed cataracts. So they would kind of bully each other to do the hobbies for them. So, like, she would ask him to read to her, and he would ask her to constantly clarify stuff on the radio. He transitioned into being a judge for like 25 years too, so he had a pretty interesting life. Oh yeah, they were super cute. They were weird, but they were super cute in terms of, like, their relationship. She would also hide her glasses from him, and he would hide his hearing aids from her. I do live in the US. Granted, the US is where I grew up, but I, like, after I turned 18, I moved around a lot, and that included living overseas and stuff. Let me tell you, the temptation to go back overseas is very much there. It would be nice to not have to worry about any of what all is going on. But things are, I guess, a little more global than that now. Right? I wonder why. Like, I used to talk about sometimes socio-political things on stream, and it's not that I'm against doing so now, but there's so much going on at any given time now that it feels like if I tried, I wouldn't know where to begin. So it's kind of just when it comes up. That depends on if we're talking about fluent or if we're talking about, like, conversational. True. Every year since 2020 in particular has felt like 5 years, but this particular 1 year has felt so freaking long, dude. Even compared to that, this year has felt so freaking long. So much has happened. Conversational... Well, I did used to work at a Japanese high school for 2 years. So while my Japanese now is pretty useless, the way that my former boss, who was not much older than me at the time, described my Japanese speaking ability was, "It's cute, like a school kid." And I'm like, "What age school kid?" And he thought about it, and he was like, grade school. And I was like, okay, I didn't need to know that, but okay. And he was partially trolling, but I don't know how much he wasn't. Like, I know he was kidding, but there was a part of him that was not kidding. So true. But since I lived in broader Tokyo, most signs also had English and Korean, and I actually found myself reading the Korean signs more than the English ones. Just because certain turns of phrase don't really exist in English. So, like, the "please take care of me" kind of line, like "hajimemashite" or "butakeo," that doesn't really exist in English. It's kind of just... like, the sentiment is there. We do have, like, "I look forward to working with you," I guess is kind of similar in English. But sometimes you would use those phrases in situations where it's not about work, so it doesn't quite fit. Korean, I'm routinely surprised by how much I remember, because I learned most of the Korean I know by playing video games. So, yep. The 4 languages that you will sometimes see in Tokyo on certain signage are, of course, Japanese and English because of tourism, and then Chinese and Korean. Chinese is actually not always there. If there's a 3rd language, it is usually Korean. So it's not super helpful for, like, location-based signs. But if you're in a train station and you're, like, looking for where the bathroom is, for example, it probably will say, like, 화장실 for the Korean part. Sometimes it'll say, like, facilities in English instead of restroom. So usually it is restroom, but yeah. I ended up putting my Korean to the test unintentionally because at the time I was in a relationship with a Blasian, a person who was half black and half Korean. And his mother was entirely Korean, first generation. And I visited his family. And I was like, do I just say things in English or do I make an effort and potentially get laughed at for being wrong? And as it turned out, I wasn't wrong most of the time. So they were pretty happy about it. Because, like, I think this is kind of a universal feeling amongst people, but when somebody, like, makes an effort to engage with your culture in an innocent way, like a way that's genuine, it usually makes most people happy. Like, there's a certain warmth to it. Although I think in the US people take that a little bit for granted when it comes to English. Or sometimes, you know, since English is taught around the world for the most part, there are people who feel a little off when somebody's like, oh wow, your English is so good, and it's like, well, I took English for 13 years of school, so I understand how those people feel a little off, but yeah. Yeah, I have noticed that. And with Chinese, since it's a tonal language, I think even more so. There's like more patience for somebody who's learning. With Korean, it's like it wasn't that popular of a language for foreigners to study prior to like Hallyu Wave. So in that same vein, people are still kind of like surprised in a positive way. I think if I were really, really motivated, I could learn very basic, like, conversational phrases in Chinese. But basically any dialect outside of Mandarin or Cantonese, I can't imagine learning. And then the language that I most feel like I couldn't do justice is actually Vietnamese. Even though my best friend in like middle and high school is a Vietnamese person. Like I pronounced her last name correctly, but like I really don't think that I can speak such a tonal language that's so different from everything else I've ever learned without like some major mental adjustment. The other language that I don't think, or well, family of language that I don't think would be easy for me to pick up is Cyrillic languages like Russian and Ukrainian, like the Slavic languages. And the reason is because basically the alphabet is based on the Greek alphabet, just like ours is in English, but certain letters went in a completely different direction for pronunciation. So my brain is always going to want to try to pronounce it the familiar way. I wouldn't be able to do it. Arabic is another one that's tough. That's fair. Chinese has so many dialects, even outside of those two. Whereas, like, with Korean, if you speak with a Seoul dialect, pretty much any person who has learned any South Korean dialect will probably understand you. Admittedly, the North Korean dialect has been kind of removed from most spaces except for refugees, so I can understand why they might not. Arabic is one that some people in my family were interested in learning, and then later, like in 2020, I had a boss who was Moroccan, and Arabic was her native language. So I would occasionally hear her speak. And her accent was really cool. Oh, Kansai? Yeah. Busan accents. So, like, it's almost a direct parallel, because Kansai is also a really populated area of Japan. But the people in Tokyo still kind of see them as bumpkins. Because they don't speak basically textbook Japanese. And in Korea, there's several different dialects, but it's... you can kind of get away with basically, quote, Seoul Hangul, wherever. The most difficult dialect to understand, though, in my opinion, is the Jeju dialect. Because, to me, it doesn't even look like the same language sometimes. Whereas Busan is like... Busan is like... a matter of tone, vocabulary, and differences in the whole manner of speaking. So, like, the way that a news anchor speaks would totally be what you would expect from somebody talking, or like customer service, for example, is how you would expect somebody to talk in Seoul. Whereas, like, if you look up somebody speaking with a Busan accent, it's so much more colorful. Like, there's a lot more emotion, there's a lot more dynamics going on there. It's just very much more expressive feeling to me. But Jeju Island is super fascinating from like a historical perspective. Like, if I remember correctly, historically it was the women who would go out and basically get food from like shellfish and stuff like that. Like, they would go out and do that while the men stayed home and took care of the kids. Which is super just different and interesting. The whole idea of like gender is a construct and gender roles are made up and the points don't matter feels very true when you see matriarchal societies like that. That's fair. They have tangerines that you're not allowed to take off the island without a special permit. I've only been to Jeju once. It was only for a couple of days, but it's really pretty. They do. They taste slightly bitter, but in a good way. It's a complex flavor. I wanted to get some more sometime and try making a tangerine cheesecake with them. They're pretty good. I like them. Although I have some sensory issues with like fruit fibers. So citrus and I only get along sometimes. I used to. And I look forward to being able to do so again when I have like a different living situation. Because right now with the shared kitchen, with a person who typically cooks most of their meals like from scratch. That doesn't leave a whole lot of time for other people to use the kitchen outside of like shorter meal prep. I have entertained the idea of doing like once I get back into it, a baking stream or two, just to see how people feel about it. I used to make really fancy desserts for events and stuff. My aunt taught me how to decorate cakes when I was like 10. But after that, though, like after I stopped making fancy desserts and whatnot, I took a break, and then one day I just started baking again. And whenever I was like kind of down or whatever, didn't really have anything to occupy my time, sometimes I would make single serve desserts. So like I would bake a single really fancy cupcake, decorate it. There was just something very chill about it. Food videos, that's fair. Before the era of food YouTube, we had the Food Network, which was just glorified food porn, so I feel like most people my age and younger are probably well acquainted with artsy shots of food. Although I don't have a nice camera anymore. So my food pictures would be subpar. Ooh, someone in my guild apparently just soloed BM. Congratulations to them. Oh, they soloed it in champion mode without being liberated. Ooh. Props. 72-hour cakes and cookies. Oh yeah, there is a guy who does that with like his cakes and stuff. He'll do like a 48-hour beef Wellington or something. And he admits that like it's probably not like the best way to make something, but it's fun for him. I think that's cool. There are definitely wrong ways to cook something, but like, provided it's not gonna make you sick and it tastes good and it looks like how you want it to look like, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But yeah, going back to your question from before about languages, the only language that I feel like I'm fluent in anymore is just English, but if I'm really pressed, I can communicate well enough in Korean to probably not die. And Japanese and Latin, I still recognize phrases and words and stuff, but I don't comfortably speak either of them anymore, despite taking 5 years of Latin and living in Japan for 2 years. With Japan, it really was a use it or lose it. So that's why I'm always surprised that my Korean hasn't gone the same way, because I've gone like years at a time without using it, but it still seems to just still be there, like it sticks. In fairness, English is kinda... I think if it weren't something where like... I mean, how do I put it? I think plenty of people who speak English wouldn't consider themselves super fluent in it because they use it to communicate, but they don't necessarily know why the rules are what they are, nor do they necessarily know what the rules are to begin with. But I think part of being fluent in a language is being able to tell when something is wrong just by listening to it, even if you don't know why it's wrong. So take, for example, if you were to say she and I, it's like, okay, yeah, that sounds normal. But if you say her and I, even if, and there are certain specific cases in English where that is correct, even if it's one of those cases, it still sounds wrong. And a person might not always remember why it's wrong, but there is still that little sense of like something is off here. Or saying like me and I, me and her, or anything like that. And being that I am on the spectrum, a lot of the time people who are on the spectrum are kind of sticklers for syntax in particular, because it's essentially just a list of rules. I would say it took my brain a while to adjust to the idea that as long as somebody understands what you mean and you're understanding what they mean, as long as the message has been conveyed between two people, that it's fine. And I think learning other languages helped with that. Particularly learning a dead language in high school, because Latin is considered a dead language. So it's like, who are you following those rules for exactly? Like, yeah, there's a lot of endings and whatnot, but the complexity of Latin is not really that high. The hardest thing about it is that you can have 4 words in a row with all the same endings because you're supposed to make the adjective match the thing it's describing. And you have to figure out which adjective goes with which noun because they can be in kind of an erratic order. And then if you're trying to translate it, you have to think about it in terms of what it's trying to say, not what it says. And I think with other languages that are older, have a longer history, and have changed less, that is the case with a lot of them. Whereas English has evolved pretty consistently from a bunch of different angles just because it is spoken in so many different places, and I imagine that's also true with Chinese. Just because of the sheer number of people on Earth who speak Chinese, and how large China is, let alone other countries that also have Chinese populations. So like Singapore, for example. Or other countries that speak like simplified Chinese. I can't afford that. We got a level 9 octopus earlier, okay? I'm taking the W. I didn't need a vac pet for that to happen. Tee. Huge octo. It was the fragment one too. It's literally the best octo. So good. 300 fragments. Let's go. It would have been nice if I had been able to hit 7 at any other point during the event. But it never happened. I think I might have gotten a level 7 EXP voucher octo at some point, but I didn't get any, the other thing. Free rune pets. Ugh, I would want to. I don't think I can, though. The timing is not right. Although it depends. Because, it might take us a while to get that collab. I still need to go back and watch the second half of season 1. Yeah, it just crosses it off. It's super silly. It just gets covered up by other things. My poor throat. Good thing I have all these Luden's cough drops. Yay! Oh my god. Solo leveling for me, I don't hate it. but I definitely watch it very differently than how I would watch Freerun. So like Freerun is a whole experience to me because the people making it, story aside, vibes aside, the people making it care a lot about creating a whole atmosphere. And I think they're really good at conveying that atmosphere. And that's why so many people who don't ordinarily enjoy something that is day by day or takes its time still enjoy Freerun. I think that between that and the emotional notes that it hits, I think it has a broader appeal than pretty much any other thing that's tried to do what it does. On the flip side, solo leveling, there's two different types of, I guess, audience person for solo leveling. One is people who are just there for the fights. And the other is people who want to know more about the system and the monarchs and stuff. But I think when it reaches the point where the show is addressing more of that stuff, like the deep lore, there are people who will fall off because apart from action, the strongest, I think, theme in solo leveling is like the artist behind it is super patriotic, and there's this idea of groupism, despite it being called solo leveling, where the main character is learning how to be a part of a society that basically ostracized him for so long. And there is potentially an interesting angle of character development for them to explore, where, you know, he doesn't join any of the big guilds because it will tip the power in favor of one. And then what will happen is it will disturb the balance of what currently exists. So there's room for them to tell a really interesting political story with it, but I don't think they will. I think they will go surface deep at most, and it will just be a show with very cool fights, and that's it. So I think if it were willing to challenge some of those political structures that the artist put into the background, that would be cool. But because they're not likely to do that, all you're left with is whatever the manga was willing to explore. Or, well, web novel. You're right. And I don't think that the web novel went deep enough into it either. I think that it plays with deep themes, but it goes surface deep with them, and it's unsatisfying for that reason. But for the people who are just looking for, like, smoothly animated fight scenes, I guess, that's fine, I guess. Exactly. One of my issues is that it's similar to My Hero Academia in that if a female character is introduced, she won't get enough screen time, her development will be ignored / sidelined in favor of the male characters. Which is such a shame, because both shows, both series really, have really interesting female characters. Like, the healer girl at the beginning of Solo Leveling and Chain, like, both of those are very interesting characters who could have had, like, full arcs. And then there's the purple-haired demon girl, but I don't know if she really counts. She at least gets airtime. But it's like, They just ignored and shelved so many characters despite introducing them, and it's like, you still have to make the world feel alive. You can't just give everybody a name and then never talk about them again and expect the world to feel alive. With MHA, I think it's a little more apparent because they started with an ensemble cast. And so shelving a bunch of characters after introducing their identities, and it's a little bit more on the nose because they literally call their powers quirks. But I only watched the first 3 seasons of MHA. So what I know of the rest is more so like what friends have told me, but it would be the same way if it were like a show where they only fleshed out the female characters and then the male characters were just a singular trope and they moved on. You can tell a story where the characters are tropey and still have the story be interesting. Inuyasha was popular after all. Sesshomaru isn't that complicated if you look at him as a series of tropes, but people still found him interesting, not just because they thought he was hot, but also like his little found family and how he like acts like he doesn't care, but he definitely cares. So, an example from a simpler time, basically. I think people are still willing to look at that amount of character expression and still be satisfied with that. It's just we get less. We get spectacle now, but we get less. Yeah, exactly. Like, what the hell? If anything, her perception as being outside of Jinwoo, her perception of having known and seen him before and after should have been super insightful, or at the very least, her presence could have been used for contrast, but it wasn't. And to me, that's disappointing. Comparatively, though, if you want something that's pure spectacle, and somehow satisfying in other ways, in this case, cinematography, the Chainsaw Man movie did a pretty good job of doing both. That's true. We resolve plot arcs and stuff so much faster. I remember seeing like a headline, I forget how long ago it was. It wasn't that long ago though, where it was like, oh, are long-running shonen falling out of favor? Like, can a long-running shonen survive nowadays? And it's like, well, it could, but you would have to change the formula. Because if we're trying to make something that's as long as like One Piece or Detective Conan, then no. I think we're past that. I don't think that's gonna happen. But well, yeah, but like Oda's getting old. And they also made a live action show. Yeah, I think that if the 2 mangaka who work on Noragami hadn't had to take a health hiatus, I think that one might have been promising as a potential long-running shonen. But it's hard to say, because Noragami might have just been kind of a cultural moment, if you will, rather than being something that like established itself as like something that would stay. So I don't know. Although then again, for a show that actually reminds me a lot of the older, slower paced early 2000s anime, Apothecary Diaries, with its rather bullshit logic for problem solving and its period drama vibes, I would say that's pretty close. It does feel like something that someone who grew up watching shows like Fruits Basket would write. You know? Because there is such a broad cast of characters, and checking in with them all takes a considerable amount of screen time. I still think it's really funny that that mangaka went to jail for tax fraud. I still need to go back and watch the rest of season 2. A more recent one that kind of reminded me of the older shows was The Fragrant Flower Blooms with Dignity. I think part of it was the art style and just like the general softness that some of the characters show. And then there are some classic tropes from that show that kind of get lampshaded or turned on their head. She probably was lost in the sauce. Literally every piece of media devoted to showing how mangaka do their jobs is like unhinged. But I think that type of show, like the one I just described, The Fragrant Flower Blooms with Dignity, couldn't really have been a longer show because there is not really any conflict. A lot of the obstacles are just people getting in their own way, which I think tells an interesting story, but there's only so much you can do with that before you start undoing character development. So I think if it had been like as long as Fruits Basket, for example, it would have been excruciatingly slow-paced. Although, speaking of Fruits Basket, I have always wished that that show would have focused more on its supernatural elements instead of just introducing them and then basically having them become irrelevant almost immediately afterwards in favor of like more Toru Honda, for lack of a better way of putting it. And the development of their relationships themselves, which that's fine, but it would have been nice if it were more balanced between the two. So when I heard they were remaking it, I was initially like, oh, it would be great if they had more of a balance to it, kind of like what Noragami tried to do. But no, that's not what happened. Oh, Bunny Girl is so good. I have only seen season 1, but I really like the way that the main characters interact with each other in that show. It's very dry and very realistic. Like, sarcastic, a little dark here and there. They feel like real conversations. And so many people who try to write dialogue basically write the dialogue as if they were all the characters, and all the characters are just them talking like themselves. But Bunny Girl does a really good job of completely circumventing that. Super good. Although, the number of people who probably got baited into thinking that show was something that it wouldn't be is very funny to me. But yeah, any show that basically has realistic conversations between the characters is usually a joy. And I think that more people would like slice of life and things like that if that were more of a standard feature. But yeah. Very true. I actually appreciate that with a lot of the new free-to-play games coming out that have you play as a specific character, they are stepping away from the silent protagonist blank slate idea. Like, sure, the Duet Night Abyss main character does say some things that maybe the player wouldn't say, but it makes them more interesting as a character. Or like Rover and Wua, want to say like 2.5-ish, like by around there, it's very evident that Rover has a history and a past and choices that they've made without the player being involved, and that there's potential for having to actually face the consequences of some of those choices that were made. And that's just so much more interesting to me than a generic self-insert blank slate protagonist who has random details retconned whenever it's convenient. Even Chaos Zero and Nightmare, who has a faceless protagonist and still follows that, like, well, the MC is a faceless commandant that everyone loves. They still speak, which is still progress. Persona 5. So I will say, I kind of wish that Joker had slightly more bite to his character in vanilla P5, and I was hopeful with Royal that they would take it just a tiny bit further, just a little tiny bit further than they did. But they did take it further than they did in vanilla, which was a pretty big step for the series. And then we have ReFantasio, made by essentially some of the same people, and the main character of ReFantasio does have a personality. They did, and then they just kind of cut it short. And then the anime came along, and boy, was his character unhinged. I haven't watched the entire anime, but I have seen clips, and they are really funny. Like, when they are just completely unhinged, they are completely unhinged. And I feel like he's less of a character in Strikers, but the other characters take up a lot of that space, so admittedly, I wouldn't say that there's a gaping hole when it comes to Strikers, especially with, like, Sophia. I love characters that use yo-yos as weapons. How come we only get fucking Bridget and Sophia? We need more. Sophie? Sophia? I don't remember whether it's Sophie or Sophia. Damn it. It's been too long. Yeah, I still haven't actually finished ReFantasio. Like, I know enough about what happens, and I understand why they made the last, like, month of the game fairly sparse, so that you would be able to work on any stats you missed out on, or up your confidants, or I don't remember what they called them in that game. Whatever, your social links. I did really like the characters, though, and I did really like a lot of the storytelling and stuff. Yeah, it feels like they basically ran out of time and realized that they had a deadline to meet, or they ran out of budget somewhere. But by their own admission, they did just kind of keep adding more and more stuff. Silksong did that too, where basically there were so many different ideas in play that they were just like, fuck it, we'll add them all. And sometimes that works really well. One thing I really liked about Rifa is that depending on which archetypes you have equipped, if you kill stuff in the overworld, you can have infinite MP. Which, to me, managing your SP in Persona games, especially on the harder difficulties, which are just multiplier differences, is super annoying at the beginning of the game. And then there's SMT, which just doesn't impose this restriction on you at all after a certain point. But yeah, exactly. Like, just having the option to do that very, very early in the game was so cool. And I'm a sucker for certain jobs unlocking other jobs. So the archetype system as a whole, I enjoyed that a lot. And the fact that they all have different overworld attacks as well. Like, some of them being ranged, some being AoE, some being like little sniper laser. Like, it's just cool. So many cool ideas in that game. and the heavy stylization with regards to all the menus and stuff. P3R also heavily stylized its menus in a really satisfying way, but actually, speaking of P3R, I just realized recently that when I did buy it originally, I got the full version of it with like the season pass. So in my mind, I was like, I don't want to spend $30 on the answer. And I completely forgot that that I got a discount when I got the game in the first place on the version of it that already had that included before it came out. And I was like, oh. Pardon me then. I was like, oh my god. Oops. Fuck. Although, it's called, episode Igus for P3R instead of the Answer DLC. I still need to go back and, like, play it. Because I didn't finish it. There's a lot of things I didn't finish from that year. Not even because I got busy, really. It's more so that, like, certain things just demanded my time. And I couldn't really work around it. So then it made a lot of games and other stuff feel like I wasn't, able to concentrate on what I was doing. So it kind of took away from the experience for me. Oh my god. Yukari is, in general, an extremely polarizing character. I did appreciate, at least in the beginning of Reload, that they had touched up her character a bit to make her feel more believable. I have no idea whether or not they improved her presence in the DLC as well. But I was definitely happier with her characterization at the beginning of Reload than I was in the original Persona 3. I am a Mitsuru fan, so... Yukari was always kind of... Like, I understand the story they're trying to tell with her, but they made her a little too thorny. Yeah. I would say Reload rewrote the script and voiced everything. Speaking of which, the voice actor for Fogato in Fire Emblem Engage is the new voice actor for Junpei, and he's so good. He did such a good job. Fantastic performance. He made Junpei even more likable, and he's already a pretty likable dude. I think Junpei being such a bro is part of why Ryuji can be so frustrating in Persona 5. Especially Vanilla P5 leading up to the arc. So like the diet building. Because he gets so fixated on... It's kind of like when a streamer gets super fixated on the numbers. It's actually a pretty good analogy. So like his real goal on the inside is he wants to protect this found family that he has because he's not alone anymore. But he becomes so fixated on the public perception part of it and the fame and the prestige that he doesn't take into account that focusing on that rather than protecting what he wants to protect is actually putting it at risk. So his character arc is a good one, but he's very frustrating as a character while he's figuring that out. Whereas Junpei is kind of a bro from the start. There's been a couple things lately that have made me want to go back and play Reload. How niche are we talking? Oh, Trails. Well, funny story about Trails. So while I haven't played any of the games, I'm an ultimate bastard because when I was still doing voice acting and when I still lived in LA, I became acquainted with like 3 different voice actors who worked on Trails. And I was like, yeah, I'll eventually play. Yeah, sure, I'll play eventually. And then I got way too busy. And then I didn't think about it. And then I started working doubles at a retail job. And then I just didn't do it. And I'm an asshole. I'm an asshole. I'll eventually do it. Yeah, there's a lot of games, to be fair. What's really funny to me was the way that I originally met Sean Chiplock was actually the MapleStory 2 beta when they were doing their like battle royale event to get like some items before the official release based on whatever your rank was. And I said, as a part of a joke about something else, that if I won a single, like I hadn't won a single round of the battle royale, I had enough points that I only needed like 1 win to get all the rewards. I said that if he sacrificed himself to end the 3rd player who was still there, that I would owe him Curry House. And then by the time that we both had time for it, Curry House had permanently closed. And there wasn't another location, and I was like, damn! So now I'm a double asshole. We don't talk anymore, but we were on friendly terms for a while. And I remember, so at the time, my now ex was like a member of the anime club at his alma mater, so he would still go. And then he started dragging me, and someone, I don't remember who it was, ended up asking a question where they learned that I was acquainted with him, and so I asked if he would like hang out with them and play Smash sometime, because they were super big fans of Trails and of Rivali. And he said sure. So I remember that very well. They played a lot of Smash and BB Tag and stuff, which I am more of a wallflower kind of person, so I didn't spend all that time getting involved, but yeah, I would say that we were like friendly for like a couple months. That tends to be the way with a lot of voice actors who are bigger and who work on like multiple long-term projects. Because of so much NDA and stuff, they kind of just disappear off the face of the earth after a while, and then if you don't really make the time to reconnect, it doesn't happen. For me, I am not what I would call high profile by any means. I have some uncredited roles on bigger projects, but mostly I've done stuff for like advertising and for people's indie games and stuff. There's a part of me that wants to get back into it, but I can't until I can do something about my throat. So I'm like, fine. Tabled for now. Tabled. I do miss it though. It was really fun having like a 4-month period where I paid all my bills that way. In LA, of all places. Like, I didn't move to LA for that reason. I moved to LA to get out of a bad situation in NorCal. And LA just happened to be cheaper than just about anywhere else except for Fresno. And I looked at it and I was like, you know, I've been to Fresno. I go there for food sometimes. I don't particularly feel safe there, so I'm gonna go with Los Angeles. Yeah. Post-COVID, it's a little different. But, I mean, unlike San Francisco, a lot of people who live in LA are just normal people. So there are a lot of places to live in LA that are just typical. I lived in Koreatown, which Koreatown is pretty affordable if you're not on the gentrified side of it. But if you had gone a few blocks south, where Pico is, or if you had gone a few blocks east into like Westlake or not Westlake, MacArthur Park, that would have been a neighborhood you probably don't want to live in. Like, on the one hand, people don't usually shit where they eat, but at the same time, your walls are paper thin and you might hear some stuff that you don't want to hear. That kind of thing. I lived in an old 1930s Depression era construction apartment, so the walls were brick, and for the most part, everybody left everybody alone. And I was less than half a block away from the gentrified part, like where it started beginning. So I got all the benefits of the tasty food and like the 2 a.m. all-you-can-eat KBBQ places, but I didn't have like... There wasn't a lot of like rough stuff going on for the most part, just a lot of tent city. That kind of doesn't surprise me, but I mean, the climate has changed since I lived there in general. It was in 2018 that I was there. That's true, free entertainment. But yeah. I miss Curry House. Their croquettes were good. I'm kind of sad that Coco's in LA doesn't taste like Coco's in Japan, though. It is the same chain, but nothing quite scratches the Coco's itch like Japanese Coco's. It's a curry place that does the whole, like, you can order mild or you can order a spice level 1 through 10, and then they have a huge list of, like, ingredients that you can add. Oh my god, yes. Coco's is like, you leave full. Because you order however many grams of rice you want as well. I miss them so, so much. Because the first place that I lived there, since I was on the Status of Forces agreement, speaking of military stuff, was in Fusa, and there was a Coco's that was directly under the train station. And since Fusa was super small, the station was also super small, so... It's like, well, you know, I just walked down all those stairs. I think I deserve a curry plate. That's how it happens. I went to a way bigger Coco's once, and I didn't like it as much as the small ones. I also liked how a lot of businesses had sliding doors. Which, when you think about, like, sliding paper doors, predating sliding glass doors, it makes a lot of sense, but it's so cool. Saved a lot of space, but it was, like, aesthetically pleasing. Bruh. Stairs in Japan. And Tokyo has, like, nowhere to sit. Like, whenever people would ask me, they would be like, oh, I'm gonna go on a trip to Japan. How much time should I spend in Tokyo? I was like, well, Number one, no matter how much time you spend in Tokyo, you will never see enough of this city to form a real opinion on it. And number two, there are so many more interesting, more culturally significant, more unique places to visit than Tokyo. You should probably make it a small part of your trip. Unless your goal is specifically crane games and going to like Mandarake or some sort of game convention or something in Akihabara. Like, if somebody told me they wanted to go to Tokyo specifically for Akihabara, I'd be like, okay, I kind of understand that. But it's usually like, oh yeah, I want to see Shibuya and Shinjuku, and it's like, okay. So after you go to the famous Shibuya crossing and spot the 10-4 building and live out your dream of being in the same place as Neku was in The World Ends With You, what's your plan after that? Technically, people do that. I really loved that about Persona 5 because obviously it came out years after I had moved back to the States. So it felt like I was revisiting a bunch of places that I already knew. It was really pleasant. What do you mean stop being level 273? What do you mean? What? Did I pass you? Is that what this is about? Bruh. Bruh. But Ilium has already passed you. What do you care? I think with event stuff, even if I'm really lazy, I'll be 274 by the time the patch drops. You don't got beef with it? Why do you have beef with Battle Mage? What did Battle Mage ever do to you? I just want this character to have access to Shangri-La, man. Ah, beef bowls are so good. Like, everybody knows Yoshinoya, but I miss Sukiya. I don't actually even know if they have locations in the US, but they were so good. The only character with legacy gear you can beef? Oh, are we talking about this? Is this what we're talking about? I see. Fair enough. Fine. If anything, the legacy item just makes me go, it's so lame that I've invested so little into this character. Badge owner, yes. I think that after the debacle with Ride or Die 2 and the temporary badge and how tone deaf that was about, like, how little they understand the legacy gap, I think the massive response there was to that will probably help. I don't know if they'll do anything about it with Ride or Die 3, but I think they will do something about it over like the next year. Because with Ride or Die, they've effectively closed the legacy gap for the Legion blocks, because you can only have 2 equipped. And if Ride or Die 3 comes out with a 3rd block that has a different name, or if it reruns the first block, that means that at most, as long as the event reruns each year, it will take 1 to 2 years for people to get both Legion blocks. Yeah, I mean, so hear me out. Ride or die, my least favorite part of that event, besides the fact that I think the rewards are not good enough outside of the Legion block, especially for people who are not going to be clearing like Code S. Why the fuck every time you go into a new boss, why do they have to give you that little splash screen with like the little shing, like they're an anime, and make you sit through 10 seconds of unnecessary cutscene before you just load into the boss? Like, what? Who's that for? Like, I was ready to fight a boss until you hit me with wasting my time. Let me kill the boss. Jack, get out of that. That's not your food. Sir? Oh, a bark at you. Get out. Yeah, that's what I thought. It's such a weird cat. I don't think it took a day to make it. Do I even have any other legacy crap that gives stats? I don't think I... Well, never mind. I do. Yeah, I do. Oof. It's okay, guys. I ruined my Misty Totem, and I didn't get enough of the flames to fix it. I actually had a pretty okay flame, but then I got greedy with the flame score, and I fucked it up. Totem whale. Bro, it's not even that... It's not that old. The Doom totems. I like how the Doom totems had like one year where they were exceptionally powerful compared to the other year because of randomized stats. I heard you wanted some legacy with your legacy. Although I think making Pitched and Dawn more accessible will probably temper some people a little bit about legacy items, where they'll be a little more patient about it, because it will feel like they have more ways to gain stats rather than just waiting for a drop that may never come. So I think there will be less urgency placed on it, but at the same time I think people will also say that, like, okay, now address this. Like, it's the next thing on the checklist. Yeah, being able to move arcane spares around is freaking huge. Ew, am I actually gonna do Luwil on multiple characters? I'd rather do Seagloom on multiple characters than do Will on multiple characters. I'm gonna be completely real with you. I mean, our boxes already feel nerfed. Although... yeah. They've left our drops on reboot for like the crystal values alone, so I feel like if they make arcanes rarer, that's just gonna piss people off more. Although, in fairness, there are some characters that I'm like, I probably don't ever want to play it past Kalos, so I'm never gonna give it arcanes anyways. I'll just do like, if I'm gonna do something as a Legion champion but I'm not gonna push it past that point, I might just do Absols because it's so much cheaper. Yeah, that's very appealing to me. So if we look back at Challenger World 1, classes that were especially dependent upon cooldown hats for their boss progression to feel good, especially at lower range values, like just being weaker. It's not that you couldn't play them, but it definitely felt worse. And if it had been like CW2, where it included early Grandis, it would have felt kind of unfair for some of them. But because it stopped at C10 and the bar is not set as high for C10, I understand why it didn't deter some people. But as far as Season 2 goes, Challenger World 2, I think the option of being able to swap into another hat and make a cooldown hat is very appealing. But I don't know if it would take precedence over glove. So assuming you only got one armor box for arcanes, I still think most people would pick glove. But it just depends. I could see like maybe a dual blade or you know, somebody like that being like, fuck it, I want my cooldown hat. It just depends though. I think it's always going to be glove in my opinion though. It would be glove and then hat. What I wonder? So something I wonder is if you take off 2 pieces of the Challenger gear, specifically the weapon and the glove, to equip arcanes, do you think we are going to retain the, or close to the same stats, from having the Challenger set plus the set bonus that you get for 2 arcanes? So like, the 2 set effect is boss damage and 30 attack and magic attack. So it's like, yeah, that's not huge, but it is free. That's fair. Honestly, since they changed it to the Challenger set and it's no longer just straight up Absolabs that they give you for item burning, they should probably consider revisiting just not even having the set bonus anymore and having it be the items themselves. Yeah. I just wonder how it's gonna work. Because it kind of seems like they overcomplicated it. I don't know. I don't know. It's weird. Okay, so time-wise, it looks like I have a while before... Oh. I don't have any Legion coupons in my inventory right now. Damn. I'm too lazy to go get them. But I will summon my fams. Because I was hesitant to pop anything. Because I didn't know what time I was going to need to leave at. But it looks like it's probably going to be around midnight, so... might as well get more experience. And I'll probably do Monster Perk Extreme and High Mountain as well. And I have a bunch of golden mushroom or golden strawberry tickets that I need to get around to using on different characters. So I'll probably do that too. So I'll probably do this like 30-minute coupon and then I'll start doing the other activities. I'm very interested to see what they've cooked up in terms of how these new systems work and what their numbers look like. Although, okay, so I know nobody really talked about this, but it's probably because the majority of people who do grind and who would care about the Star Force changes already have vac pets. But you know, having those star cores drop from mobs, depending on their drop rate, that might make some classes feel more dependent on vac pets. Because like my class, I have to move around a lot anyway to replace my summons because they're fairly short duration. And if I were going to play my Ilium, for example, you portal farm, which admittedly would still benefit a lot from a vac pet, but you can do Wings of Glory to loot in between, depending on the map. Some maps it doesn't work very well on, but others it does. You just have to pick carefully. But for classes that take like AB, if you're using Soul Seeker to farm, or if you're bite farming on a Nightwalker, you don't really have a reason to move. I don't have any hard-earned money. It's a consideration, though. If they do Unified Cash Shop, like if they actually give us the Unified Cash Shop, I might say fuck it and get a vac pet, later. Like, after I get a new job. Something about soft-earned money sounds really gross. Man, I had like settled on making the like mobile game hybrid games that I was gonna like continue doing dailies on or whatever. I was gonna limit it to like Wuwa, CZN, and Duet Night Abyss for now. But then one of my friends mentioned that their sister's picking up Blue Protocol, and I'm like, I don't want to go back and do Blue Protocol. I don't want to. Like, it's not terrible, but also I feel like it's a little outdated upon release, and they announced their Season 2 information a little too early. A lot of the grindier, like, waste your time tasks in it are way too grindy. Oh, yeah. I wouldn't be able to do it if it were, like, heavy exploration, like, making you work for that currency. Like Genshin is, for example. I do occasionally still open HSR and do the endgame modes on auto, and then just pull. Just because I can, but I don't do dailies. Granted, a lot of the games that I did do dailies in for as long as I did were the ones where it takes like less than 2 minutes. Hi, Fez! It is $100 or $69 if you use reward points. And then it is $15 or 9.8k with reward points to revive it. And then there's, if you get the lucky ones, rather than buying a vac pet, if you get one from the like Wonderberry thing, you get the discounted one, I think. A discounted fancy Water of Life. But yeah. Yeah, the slightly annoying thing about reward points is you have to have the exact amount of reward points required for the discount, or you can't use reward points. You also can't buy something split between NX and Maple points. That's true. I think for people who really want a specific one, spending the equivalent of what it would cost to get a single 5-star of your choice in a Hoyo game is probably fine for them. But suck miso bags. Just imagining somebody picking up one of these miso sacks and just going, like, sucking on it like you would a lollipop and making inappropriate noises. And it's making like that one Pepe face where there's a weight that landed on his head and it's got a dent. Why am I like this? Bruh. I also have Z-Bound, to be fair. Look, when Reboot was going through tough times, pet loot lag was so freaking bad that not only did it just make the game borderline unplayable at times, you also didn't get all your shit. So sometimes you would have to go, like, frantically pick up the idealized drops, like the node stones, before they made them slightly less bad drop rate. But honestly, seriously, they need to revert the drop rate on this to where percent drop rate affects it at 100% rate instead of half. Like, why? Fix it. Fix it for both that and for fragments. Jerks. Especially if the rest of the game's gonna have more streamlined progression. Come on. Ain't no reason to double down so hard on making 5th jobs super annoying outside of events. Although I admit, if they did revert the drop rate on node stones so that it was like I was getting like the full 401% drop rate that's available to me, best believe that I would be putting nodes on random mules for like no reason. Like, I'm never gonna play this, but I'm gonna max out all its node stones. You know, as one does. I mean, like, you can see my Z. It's still here. Oopsie. I do wish I could sharpen what Maple looks like on stream a little bit, but most filters that you can put over things don't interact with Maple. I suppose I could... there's a few different ways I could go about it. The NVIDIA overlay used to work, but I don't think it does anymore. It doesn't recognize it as a supported game. The Rock Mage. Bro, I'm telling you, they turned it into Kinesis. They turned it into Kinesis. And then they made no more friend story jobs, despite setting it up with like a little X-Men premise and showing like the beginnings of 2 other characters awakening to their power. No, but he has a rock. PP shield. PP shield rock. And now instead of that, we're getting the Shine classes. Can you imagine if Global was just like, hey, so we know you're not gonna release more of these, so we're just gonna release more friend story jobs, and KMS just starts seething. Yeah, exactly. The setup was there. And friend story was actually interesting. And not just because of Kinesis, specifically female Kinesis, displaying mega bisexual energy. I wish I liked playing Kinesis more. But the D20 cannot make up for the clunk. Or the fact that Lucid can just fly out of the train. Well, didn't she have a bow? Like at the end, she was using like a hunter's bow, the baby blue bow. It's like level 10. Which is kind of weird because like we already have Wind Archer, and we did already have Wind Archer at the time. Yeah, she had a bow. She didn't wear the rest of like the bowman armor though. I wonder if some of the ideas for her character got scrapped into Pathfinder. Wouldn't be the first time that they made something kind of antithetical to what it looks like. Kane is cosplaying as a thief, but he's an archer. And I guess the reason he's an archer is because it's the closest thing they could think of to like a hitman, because they turned the gun class into a... Well, we have a mech, but also like they turned the gun class into more of like a goofy pirate. Like specifically the goofy pirate archetype. It's not the kind of like, oh, we turned it on its side, it's a kill shot kind of gun. It's more like the... You fire it and a little flag pops out and says bang. The vibes are still there. Although in my opinion, the Jet vibes were more immaculate. I miss Jet. Kind of. I think the fact that Cannon Master has an intentionally super slow moving skill is super funny. Like, to an extent, Blaze Wizard and Ice Lightning had that as well. But theirs were sped up. For Cannon, though, it's like part of its identity. Although Rolling Rainbow has like the cutest name. Hello, hello, what's up? I wish I liked Cannon more because their skills are cute and weird. And their movement's actually really good. They probably do. That's a good point. It might be worth revisiting after that. Oh god, the big red laser. They took it away and gave it to Buccaneer. And then they took that away too. It's like underplayed, but not super underplayed. I've seen more cannons than I have phantoms, which is something. Although, with the recent phantom propaganda after the 2-minute changes, that might change. I actually really miss the animation for the Buccaneer laser. I thought it would be so stupid, and then I finally tried it, and I was like, oh my god, this is so chill. There was something super duper chill about it. Mihail's lasers were also something. I don't think Mihail's lasers were ever as smooth as the pirate lasers, though. The pirate lasers were vibes. But you know what the frickin' Cannoneer laser era reminds me of? Elnath PQ. What a strange time. Oh, the BAM altar changes? So good. So very good. Are you familiar with how altar worked before? Where you placed 1 to 4 of them? And you could make whatever, like, shape that you wanted with them? The main concern that I think most people had when they heard about new altar was if, like, you would still be able to cover a big part of the map. But let me place it down here. Yeah, here it is. So it hits far enough down that if there were another platform below this, it would still be hitting. And then up here, it still hits this platform. And then this one dies to dusk. So it's basically doing the work of 2 Janus balls. It's pretty cool. Another map that shows it really well. Yeah, it's really good. This map here is a super, super, super good example. Let me just move my Grim Harvest out of the way. Oh, okay, great. It died. Perfect. Okay, let me just put this here. Do you see how it hits everything? It literally hits the entire side. Let me just shove this down here. This here. And this here. Super duper lazy. I don't have to do anything. There was like... So what I used to make this rotation instead of using maple maps, since I don't think it was even updated for new altar at the time, was I looked in like the BAM channel for this area, for Arcus, and I saw that like they were placing 2 Janus balls on this side to cover the whole thing. And I was like, wait, I think new altar is big enough that it'll cover that whole area. So I tried it, and it was glorious. It's pretty good. I mean, I only have level 1 Janus, so I think it was a really big, very good change. It's also really nice for bosses where, like, for Gloom, you would have had to take the time to set up your altars and summons right before open. You don't really have to do that anymore. The delay is very small. There's not really a cooldown on it. It's like 0.6 seconds. It's great. Altar change is very, very W. Huge. It's just generally very nice. Pretty much all the quality of life they've been giving BAM the last, like, couple of major patches are things that make us not want them to rework the job. We just want a buff at this point, I think. Just like to be a little bit stronger. Although it's hard to even properly ask for that because the Origin is so good and the Hexa is so front-loaded that a 260 or so Mule is very strong when you compare it to like other classes. It's just that later on, It doesn't feel that way because the Hexa was front-loaded, you know? I agree. Setting up 3 was kind of annoying. Setting up 2 wasn't so bad because of the down skill key option to place 2, but there were cases where it just wasn't helpful, especially for grinding. Super unhelpful. And then having to pay attention to like little details on the platforms or on the map to remember exactly where to place it. Yeah. Overall, like, huge improvement, very good. There is some loss of like quirkiness, but I don't really think most people are gonna miss it. Especially no longer having to deal with the charge system and no longer having to balance the idea of what if it leaves your altar, because you can just replace it. And just place it here. Oh look, I can place it here. Replace it here. Like it's so much better. So much better. It's there to drag mobs. It's there to basically hit in this little corner here. In case the mob that spawns like here wanders this way instead of wandering this way. So that it goes back into my summon. I have no idea how much damage my Lucid Soul does anymore. It did 2-shot, I wanna say, at some point in very early Grandis, but I'm not that strong. Even outside of drop gear, I'm not all that strong, so yeah. The Lucid Soul in Arcus, the reason why I was placing it where I was placing it is so that when it hits, it procs Dusk, and then Dusk kills the platform above it. The Lucid Soul is cute. I'm kind of sad that the Mag Soul version of Lucid Soul is a regular summon that follows you instead of being stationary. Because having souls that are like stationary summons like this is kind of cool. It feels like such a waste to use Aura Scythe when those things spawn, but like if I don't, they take 30 years to kill by comparison. That didn't used to be the case. But my lack of gear is starting to show a lot more in Odium than it did before. Like, I'll fix it, probably. Especially with the changes that we're getting. To be honest, I'll probably make some progress during Challenger World 2. Because what I'm intending to do is boss and then just not look at my money at all. And if I want to boss on my mules, I'll do that too. So I'll just let it sit and accumulate. And since I'm not actively playing on Chronos while I'm doing that, I'm just doing the bosses and then pissing off. Hopefully I will have the discipline to save for events and stuff. I don't blame you. Ren is very, very fluid, and I think the smoothness of her gameplay is a good sign of things to come for when they actually fix the action delay changes that they want to bring in a way that makes the players actually happy. Ren mobbing is okay. So the range of her hurricane is big. You can jump while using it, of course, and change directions just fine. But her summon, the ball, just goes back and forth all the way across the screen. So if you place the ball in a smart way, you only have to kill part of the map. So like in this map, for example, I would probably put the ball so that it hits these 3 platforms here. And then when it goes this way, it would kill this platform, and Dusk would probably kill this platform, just like it is now. So I would basically just be going back and forth like this. And that's it. Seems very chill, I guess, for something that's not standing still. Because, I mean, Cygnus Knights and the chickens method to keep your Janus balls hitting exists. So obviously there's more chill things, but I can think of worse, I guess, is what I'm saying. I think her skill colors are pretty as well. I think a lot of those interim shades are things that have less representation in Maple. Like how her skill, like her hurricane skill is kind of a pinkish red. And her black skills look like they have shadows. Very cool. I am most likely going to make a Lyn. Even though I already have a Lyn. I have this Lyn right here. I'm gonna make another one. And probably make that one a Legion champion. It's such an easy boss mule. And because most other people will be playing Ren, there will be no shortage of people who would like to take advantage of my services. Especially because if we don't get the later balance changes that Ren got in KMS, Ren is gonna feel just a little bit weaker than some of the other class options. It's not super bad. Like, I don't think anybody needs to worry. If they like her playstyle, I think they're gonna have a great time regardless. So. But there will be people who are like, I wanna push further. And for that, I need assistance. Come here, Len. So yeah. Yes, I did. My CW1 character is this Ilium right here. 276. Speaking of which, I think Ilium is a really, really strong choice for CW2. And I would imagine others would agree. It is getting some nerfs later on, but it's as strong as it was in CW1, but now easier to play. So I look forward to seeing more Iliums appear and seeing what they think of the class. Baki also did Kaiser. I like Kaiser's concept a lot, and being able to dye the transformation still goes pretty hard. I realize it's been that way for a long time, but like, I think it still goes pretty hard. Kaiser means we're kind of robbed of getting a little VFX rework though. It was so weird to me when they reworked AB, but they didn't rework Kaiser. Like, I feel like Kyle was robbed. Because they released so close together in KMS, like originally. Those released so close together, and their storylines were intertwined, and all of that. And they took forever to release any more Nova characters after that. So if they were gonna rework more than one of them at a time, it would be both of them, right? But no, apparently not. Apparently not. I mostly like the AB rework. Although, I feel like rewriting Escalade as a character takes away some of what made AB weird before. Cause Escalade's a weirdo. He's a little freak. For the people who remember what AB's old story was, He's a little freak. And I don't necessarily think changing him was a problem, but I think that AB in general has a bit less bite in her personality because she's not telling off Escalade all the time. She lost her sass. But aesthetically speaking, and in terms of like giving her a song and everything, that's all good. Mm-hmm. Come to think of it, I've never actually seen the animations for 6th job for Kaiser, so I don't know if that feels like the quote soft rework that a lot of other classes feel like they get, at least visually. But I think if they're not going to like remaster and sort of modernize the transformation itself, that it's not really going to address what people want to see from a rework. But that's just my opinion. The Kaiser mains were in relatively good spirits about the 2-minute changes. So I'm just an outsider looking in. I liked the old Trinity animation, but I did not like having to mash the button 3 times. Like having to tap it, like I didn't like that. Well, I did, but I didn't. I liked it until I didn't. If that makes sense. It was fun in short bursts. I also remember her old recharge system before they started buffing it repeatedly and then eventually reworked the whole thing. It did feel good to reach a point where your recharge was just all the time. But I don't think that, say like now that the game basically starts at level 200, or even like 220 almost, I don't think it adds as much as it would have back then. So I don't really feel like we're missing a whole lot by not having that part. I also miss the backflip. It was cute. Little things like that add so much flavor. Hayato, for example, depending on what stance you're in, your, how you hold your weapon when you jump. Little details like that are things that people become attached to with their class. Reworking Victoria? Oh, I have no idea. Honestly, I don't think it needed to be reworked in the first place. I think that the pre-Big Bang version of Victoria Island with its non-linear map structure felt more interesting. And in fairness, even in the very beginning, there were maps that people didn't use. They were just maps that you traveled through. And especially now that most people just teleport everywhere, removing them feels even more pointless. And one of the strangest things is like they removed maps that were popular, like Hennessy's Hunting Grounds. And they removed Elf Forest, which meant that for a while you couldn't hear that BGM anymore until they changed the BGM of another map to use it. Yeah, it's kind of just you do your tutorial quests on your Explorer there and then you leave. But since they're giving us the ability to skip those quests soon, hard to say. Granted, they made entire areas just to do level 1 to 40 quests on a singular class, and they did that over and over again for multiple classes. So when you go back and you look at their decision to nuke half of Victoria Island, it's just like, why? It looks stupid in hindsight, kind of like how, oh, we removed Jet We had over a year to think about it, and we removed Jet. And then we just reworked Lynn instead of removing Beastamer. Okie dokie. And then we got Sia. And it's like, I can only imagine the people who were highly invested in their Jet just feel so weird about that. Like, why couldn't they make the decision for Go West a little sooner? I guess. Or why not just say, hey, we're leaving Jet in the position it's in for now and not making changes to it, please understand. And then just, like, that amount of transparency, I think most people would be just like, well, that kind of sucks, but I guess thanks for telling me. So people would focus maybe on their other characters or not constantly be waiting for news. Yeah. My thing is that for Maple, since they've kind of changed the barrier of entry, so they kept changing the experience curve and everything until 5th job is kind of like where people start playing the game. But now that we have hyperburning events a couple times a year, and magpots are usually combined with it to make it even faster, and rewards from multiple sources to max out the matrix and whatnot, there's kind of a split where the game begins if you're off event somewhere in 5th job, and the game begins in 6th job if you're on events. Which is super weird, but I feel like they might as well just improve the 5th job experience by now. But since they're making it basically skippable if you're playing on events, I don't know if they will. I wouldn't consider it one of the top fuck-ups, but I would consider it one of the most egregious in terms of, like, cost to the player. Especially since most Jet mains were on reboot. I still have the little item they give you to use for a year in place of the Jet link. I wonder if they'll ever reintroduce the class. Or if they'll make one of the Shine classes basically maybe a Shine Pirate. Basically a remastered Jet. That'd be interesting. But I also understand how after what happened with Jet, there are people who are very hesitant to play non-KMS jobs, like even more so than before. Before it was just, oh, well if there's a bug with my class, it might take them time to fix it. But that's not even an issue with Sia, and there's still people hella very, very, very afraid to consider investing into Sia. Especially with the Erda Link issues when she released. It would be a waste to not reuse some of what they removed, that's true. But our code is... They kept copy-pasting shit from multiple versions of the game without regard for what it would do to everything that was already there. And then when KMS took over the patches for overseas versions for a while, I say a while, but for GMS it was several years, they didn't understand what it was that global players value, for one. But they also just kept trying to remove all of the content that was unique so that they could streamline the patch process. So they tried removing maplestory, they tried removing all the other content, and it's like, why are you doing that? Like, this isn't, like, that was basically the beginning of the player sentiment of like, wow, you really don't understand us at all, do you? Because before, they would still kind of like try to give us content from every version. And TMS is still doing really well after merging Hong Kong MS into it, because they know what their players are willing to spend money on and they're willing to adapt their strategy to that. But we'll see which route they take. KMS was borderline dead for about 5 years before it got revived into a top 10 popular MMO in Korea again with the V patch. So I can't really say it's impossible that something happens that changes things for the better. But the degree to which players have been burned by one step forward, two steps back isn't really something they can ignore. It's understandable that the player trust would be bad. I wouldn't want to work for Nexon America for a couple reasons. Basically, the first thing is their compensation, like their listed compensation for their hiring ads, is too low for the cost of living for the area in which it is. So some people think that Maple is in Santa Monica. It's not. It's in El Segundo. So looking at Santa Monica prices, yeah, of course, it's way too little money. Looking at El Segundo, though, it's not that bad, but it's still lower than market value. Like, you would have to really love working on games and love working on live service games, on top of wanting to spend 6 months to a year trying to acquaint yourself with a 20-plus-year-old game's spaghetti code that has been globally messed with. Because we have copy-pasted code from Maple Sea. We have basically copy-pasted code from KMS with translations slapped on top of it, on top of GMS already having been its own thing if you go back far enough. So the amount of different content means that if somebody really wants to work on global, they have so many things that they need to figure out. At that point, just take the train. Like, LA has the probably second best rail system for inner city movement in the US, which ain't saying much. It's probably like tied with DC, which sounds real bad. And then after that, you have things like BART and ACE for like the North Bay area. But go figure, the few places in the US that have good train-oriented public transit all use the maglev technology that Japan gave the US as a gift for free. Go fucking figure. Yeah, that's kind of my angle. Is I would basically do my errands after work. And with Maple, I'm sure that there are CMs who work off the regular hourly, like 9 to 5 schedule. Because they post patch notes at weird times. And obviously when there's like maintenance, unscheduled, unplanned, etc., there are people working off hours. But some of that work is done by KMS devs. So, especially now, since they haven't finished hiring enough people. So that's mixed time zones as well. It's hard to tell. If I were going to work as like a GM for a game though, I would probably choose to work not a 9 to 5. Oh, speaking of jobs, that question earlier about what would I do if I could choose a job, I have no idea. I usually just do whatever is available. So like, if what's available is retail, then I do retail. If what's available is being a server, then I do server work. Like, as somebody who doesn't have a college education, I kind of just apply for what's available that's not going to completely wreck my ability to do what I want in my free time. So for me, work is more so a means to an end, not like a fulfilling career kind of thing. So yeah. I've had interesting jobs, like I worked in mental health for years. That's a difficult job, but it was rewarding. Yeah, I mean, like, if I were to get so deeply invested in a job that it was also, like, my passion or whatever, I would run into the issue of being neurodivergent and being someone who puts way more of myself into the things that I value than the average person would. Like, most people agree you should never give 100% at work if you work for somebody, because they're going to alter their expectations and base them around your 100%. So on days when you can only give 70% or 80%, you're underperforming. Whereas that lazy bitch who has an office across the hall from you who only gives 50% every day is considered working so hard on a day when they give 55. Like, it's a careful balance. You want to be useful, but you don't want to be indispensable because then you're unpromotable. You don't want to be too replaceable, though, or you'll lose your job. So it's like, it's a very delicate balance that most people in my position do not juggle well. Mm-hmm. Exactly. They'll find you new things to do. Yeah, exactly. I don't think that that should exist. But we live in a society. What I find really crazy is that there are companies who get basically kickbacks based on the number of employees that they have that are so valuable to them that even if they have employees who literally do nothing, they get more out of having them than out of not having them. And I'm always like, why couldn't that have been me? I want one of those. One of those unfulfilling, lazy jobs where nobody really cares about your productivity. Come on. But now that people are trying to replace jobs with AI, yeah. Normally I would say yes, but currently that is a very risky endeavor. I always liked this song from Pokemon's Olivine City. I don't really play the Pokemon's games all that much, but I do remember a decent chunk of the music. Not all of it, though. Like, if you tried to quiz me on a gen that I didn't play, I probably won't succeed. But bureaucratic jobs have a lot of advantages, provided that things get a little better. I'm sort of the opposite. So, very recently, I was playing through Gen 5. Okay, so I thought this before I played Gen 5, but why did they never think to do another low HP remix? It's such a bop. Like, missed opportunity. I like Gen 5 overall, but I do think that some of the songs loop a little too early. And I do think that it's also a little more obvious that the interiors of the buildings are basically copy-pasted a gazillion times. Which, they've done that in every Pokemon game. It is not new. But something about how high quality Gen 5's pixel art is makes it more apparent. Because they're more stylized. So you can tell immediately that it's just the same thing over and over again. And they're not like a generic square layout, so that makes it more obvious too. That said, they only go on to cut more and more corners after Gen 5, so it's like you can kind of sort of see the beginnings of what Pokemon has become if you replay Gen 5 with a critical lens, I guess. I also really liked the Indigo DLC for Gen 9, which was very Gen 5 coded. Really liked the music. But, my first Pokemon game was Gen 2. To this day, I've still never played Gen 1. But, even though I got Oris, I didn't actually play through it. And it was only very recently, as a part of some friends doing a, like, group Nuzlocke, that I played Gen 4, the Platinum Nuzlocke. I had never done Nuzlocke before. So that was interesting. But I have played, I played Gen 6 and Gen 7 when they were new. And then I got Gen 8 when it was new, but it took me a long time to go back and play through it. I think it was last year. And then this year I played Gen 9. I have a lot of opinions about each of them, but I think my prevailing opinion is still the same as it has been since their tradition, like their transition to basically fully 3D models. If the game's gonna look like that, it also shouldn't run super poorly. And the result is like Gen 8 is still blurry, but it still runs kind of bad. And then Gen 9, I wouldn't say there's a point in time where I felt like Gen 9 was pretty. But we all know that Gen 9 also runs like doo-doo. So if it's going to look like that, and you're going to skip modeling interiors for buildings altogether, except for a random sandwich shop and a few other places, it should probably be better optimized. But oh well. I recognize I am not the target audience of Pokemon games, to be fair. I do. Anything in particular cross your mind class-wise? Cause I've at the very least leveled them all. There are some that I've played more than others, though. I have heard that ROM hacks definitely fill the void for a lot of people. And in the case of Gen 8 and 9, they run better emulated than they do on console, so I'd imagine that's also a better experience. For me, though, what I like is the online features as far as newer Pokemon games go. So it bums me out that I basically don't get that if I play the emulated games, but given that I don't have a Switch 2, if I do play Gen 10, it probably will be that way. I don't know if I will, though. Okay. I'm gonna do Monster Park Extreme. That's what I'm gonna do. Oh, rude. How dare you turn off the lights? I just loot some of this stuff. Like the peasant that I am. I sometimes really hate those portals. I know they're useful to people who use them for grinding, but I hate them. Even on Ilium, where I place my own portals, I still get mad when I like want to loot something above my portal. And I go to jump, and it's just like, no. No. Honestly, ever since the 2-minute changes, I have been in the market for retesting and seeing what boss mules I like, and potentially introducing new classes to my boss muling options, but it's gonna take me a while to go through them all and see how they feel, and some of them I'm probably gonna wait on forming a new opinion until the action delay changes happen, because some classes do not change very much, but some really change, so we'll just have to see. 40 node stones. Nice. I guess I'll give those to my Shadower. How do you like Demon Avenger? Did you get a Ruin Force shield? I've actually never had one drop for me on any character. I'm not sure how I would feel if it dropped on a character that couldn't use it. But I have had Cursed Kaiserium drop on my BAM before, and I'm just like, man, whatever. Oh, you're so lucky. That's a big W. There is, I guess it was Strylander. I think he got Ruin Force shield on normal. Like very early. Somebody did. Somebody who streams did. And it was somebody who's newer to the game. I was like, oh, there's gonna be some envy for that. I should give 6-drop Demon Avenger a chance sometime, because it's not really an animation lock. It's like there's something about the animation delay from going from their bossing skill to doing other things when DA was first introduced many, many years ago, that to me felt odd. But I've been meaning to give both demons another shot in the future. Might as well do that. Okay. Go here. That is one thing that I do appreciate about Maple, though. Even though some classes have kind of lost their identity or had their identity changed over the years, because each class, for the most part, feels unique, and has its own, like, sort of quirks. They're not homogenized, basically. Even if they do have, like, similar burst cooldowns and stuff, I think that's part of what allows people to really, really connect with their class and their character. And to some extent, like, some people form sort of their identity around it, and sometimes that leads to not so great things, but outside of that, I think it's cool for the most part. Whereas, like, 14, which has been criticized for 3 expansions in a row for job homogenization, I can understand how people want their class identity to feel right, but it doesn't. I'm hopeful that Maple never really loses that. I don't think it will, though, because DNF hasn't, and DNF also has a huge list of classes. I will be right back. Okie dokie. Oh, speaking of Pokemon, this is always a cute song. Yeah. How much more convenient do you feel like the aura is? I'd imagine very. I see, I see, I see. That's fair. Let's stack some buffs to make this faster. Nah, I won't use one of those. Did I miss anything obvious? I'm missing like 6 mil range. Hello there, Maple Dads. Oh my gosh, Uncreed. How you doing, everybody? How's it hanging? Thank you for the raid. Shocked Pikachu. Bind Pino and kill her while she's bound. Yeah, there was actually a bug at one point for like an entire patch where binding her on the floor and killing her would actually result in you not getting any loot. So there's some people who are afraid to do that. Thanks. Yeah, it's been pretty chill. Oh, yeah, duh. Of all the things yeah, okay. I just asked myself if I forgot anything obvious, and yeah, yep, sure enough, I forgot G-skills. Yep, that about covers it. That is what I was missing. Whoops. How's your Halloween? Oh, lucky me. 2 mobs right next to each other. Oh, and both birds. Okie dokie then. Boyds. Oh, 3 of them in a wow. Did I? I didn't this year. I've been having like this weird neck pain, like migraine situation for the last week or 2. So I haven't had the energy for like festivities. Aww, that's cute. I always liked how Power Rangers and the other shows that are like based on it are so hype. Like they really just, they know hype. They just do. There's a Japanese show called Madan Senki Ryukendo where it's just 2 instead of like a full team. But it embodies like everything I thought was super cool about Power Rangers as a kid. It was a joy to watch, to be honest. It was goofy and weird, but it was super fun. Ah, yes, I have killed all the necessary snakes. Now I have to go find the Boyd, the other Boyd. There we go. Hello, birds. I'll just put this down here. And go up here. Ah, well, good luck with your drive. I hope that it is uneventful in a good way. People can be quite the interesting drivers on holiday weekends. I feel like they really didn't have to make the mobs in here so similar looking to each other. Like the way that the birds are just green and red reversed. The slimes being 2 different colors is way more obvious, but the birds just feel, I don't know. There's a part of me that hopes that one day they make the first time that you spawn the Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever he is. I wish they would increase the timer a little bit, because doing this solo, sometimes you don't even get to hit him the first time he spawns. Oh boy. Either I missed him, or he didn't spawn. Well, that's tragic. Whatever. This is one of those things that, like, if a new player were asking me if if they should solo Monster Park Extreme, I would probably say no, even if you have the damage to do it. It's a lot faster and a lot more chill in a party. And then, it's like people can tell you, oh, it spawned in this corner, or oh, it's not here. It's like a tiny bit of socialization, which maplestory doesn't have as much of as it used to. It does still have some though, and I think it has more than some people realize if they just look a little harder for it. That's true. It is a really big map, and it's easy to miss, like, sometimes the corner of the map. I don't mind the concept of Monster Park Extreme because it's similar to Hungry Mudo in a way, with the mobs spawning on random platforms being kind of similar to the recipe you get being random, even though the mobs in Hard Mudo are static except for the boss. My main gripe with it, though, is that it takes everything that's kind of annoying about Hard Mudo. It doesn't fix any of it. And then it makes it slightly more annoying by having the boss despawn. Oh my goodness, MVP trains. As somebody who doesn't pay a whole lot of attention to them, how much did the MVP change affect that now that you can't really do free MVP bronze anymore? Like, are there less trains? I'd assume the people who spend still spend. So it probably hasn't changed that much. My maple socialization consists of me disappearing for spans of time and then coming back and, I guess talking too much. Annoying my guildmates and then disappearing again. I used to do party bossing and stuff, and I probably will again in CW2 and after. I didn't bother in CW1 because doing the bosses that were listed there wasn't really too crazy to do solo. And it also felt like most of my guildmates were skipping CW1. And I don't have that many friends that play Maple. I have a few. Although, if the winter update changes go off without a hitch, and the future changes that they announce afterwards are good, I might actually be able to recommend maplestory to people who are not familiar with it. Which is... I'm sure other longtime players understand, like... There's just been a long period of time where it was hard to recommend this game to people. Even when it was doing better, it's like, if without the context of what it looked like when it was not doing better, it still wasn't the best new game, like, new player experience. It's getting a lot better, though. Aw, man. I'm gonna get so close. Almost. That's not too bad. Pretty soon I will be able to do it in 2 spawns, I think. Even if I missed the first one. Because I was almost able to do it just now. That's kind of what I mean by, like, Bam's origin is carrying pretty hard. Super, super good. I guess I need to put points, now that I'm thinking about it, I need to put some Hexa into... Aura Scythe is next, so that should actually help with my off. Off-origin burst. Non-origin burst, however it is that people phrase it these days. Okay. Those are done. Let me go over here. These, and then the birds are down. I don't know. On the one hand, I think it would be very unpopular for them to not implement it and to not comment on it, especially. But GMS still has random output for royal hair and face coupons. Despite that, KMS did away with that a long time ago. So the way that Global and KMS have handled the cash shop has been super different for a really long time. Another thing that's really different between the two is the regular items that you can buy, like the regular cosmetics that you buy in the cash shop that are not premium surprise style boxes, are permanent in KMS, whereas they're 90 days here. And they were permanent in KMS when I first started playing KMS, which was all the way back in like 2007. So it's like, a part of me really wants to believe that they will give us Universal Cash Shop, but there's another part of me that, based on past precedents, I'm just not too sure. Like, I don't feel confident saying like, oh, it's fine, they didn't mention everything when they were doing the panel, it's coming, don't be doomers. Like, I can't really do that with this because the decisions that they've made around monetization have been not necessarily conclusive. And if we do get it, we might get it on a different timeline as well. I admit it would be super smart and a very popular move to do it when all eyes are on them for the winter update. But I have seen them make decisions before that weren't in their best interest. So, I don't know. I hope we do, because think of all the vac pets they would sell to people who have held off. Just because the idea of if you wanted a vac pet on every character, you would need 7 because of the factions. I think especially, so back when they first introduced non-universal cash shop in KMS, it made some sense because in a lot of games, your items that you spent money on were not account-wide. So that was kind of Maple's version of items not being account-wide. And I think people were more understanding of it back then. But now that we've moved towards more games letting you do a lot on one character, and Maple is still in this, occupying this space where you raise an account and not a character, which is something you do in some other Korean MMOs. I think that they waited a very long time to introduce it, and I think the longer they wait, the more players they are missing out on, basically, because it's an outdated idea. Especially with how hard they've shifted into raise an account, not a character, or raise an account to raise a character, depending on how you look at it. I'm probably going to do the mention before I somehow forget, so that I can get the background. It's relatively soon that I'm going to have to bounce to get food. But I probably, if I don't fuck this up, I have time to do the whole thing. I don't even know why I bothered looking to the left. There's not supposed to be any anomalies on floor 9. I just wasted like 3 seconds of my life. I think at the very least, like Universal Cash Shop, like truly Universal Cash Shop, I think was something no one had on their bingo card when KMS introduced the idea. But I think at the very least, they should have combined all of the grandest classes into one Universal Cash Shop. And combined like all the non-KMS jobs. Combined all of the... And they kind of solved it a little bit by making Canon and, oh, there's an anomaly. By making Canon and Pathfinder become explorers. Same with, Dual Blade. But, like, there's just no real reason for them to have all the grandest jobs split between, like, 3 factions. Because you have the Nova, the Flora... Maybe it's just the 2. Anyway, it feels like a lot. Friend Story being off all on its own. They should have just, at the very least, put Sengoku, Jianghu, and Kinesis all in the same shared thingy. That's weird. He just stopped. Alrighty then. I didn't think I would memorize the anomalies list, but I think I did. Unintentionally. Like, there's only 4 down here. It would be whether the lights are on or off, whether this is missing or not, the light bulb, whether or not this guard is missing, and there's a girl that can spawn here. I'm just... Oh, well, the statues are up there. They're not supposed to be like that. I think most people didn't expect to accidentally memorize the anomalies list. Although, some of them, until you actually see them, like the masked gentlemen moving at different speeds and stuff, are like... Or like the scratch marks that can appear in the upper left here. You think, oh, it's gonna be subtle. It's not subtle. No ghosties. I've gotten the little, like, quill here a bunch of times. Oh! That's very interesting. Huh. I haven't had that happen before. Well, I guess that counts as an anomaly. Oh, it's the shrinking light one. No, let me out. I know the shrinking light anomaly takes you back to floor 9 if it gets to shrink all the way, because that happened to me once. That was very close. I think the creepiest anomaly is the one where you're just walking, minding your own business, and then the lights turn off when you pass by the fireplace and you just hear somebody throwing a bunch of wood and stuff into the fireplace. Creepy. And I say that as somebody who plays entirely too much Phasmophobia. I don't play that many horror games, but I play them when they're there. I just think it's funny because, like, you wouldn't really expect to get spooked by something in Maple. I don't think there were anomalies. I could be wrong. Nope. I get this right. This is the type of event where a person probably could gaslight the crap out of themselves, especially because there are 50 possible anomalies. So it's like, well, there has to have been at least one, and it's like, that's not really how it works. It kind of rolls the dice on like a 50-50 first, and then it rolls the dice on which anomaly it's gonna be. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't tell us about Universal Cash Shop, like if we get it. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't tell us about it until right beforehand. To kind of like wait and see if people buy vac pets on multiple characters. That feels like a Nexon thing to do. And some people would do it anyway because they want to have a vac pet in CW. Regardless of like whether they have them in Chronos or not. Although Ren does get a vac pet for free for 30 days. Both that and a permanent pet. The Saya pet, the Amugi one, is the permanent pet. I wish they would let you pay a certain amount to turn an event vac pet into a regular vac pet. Because there were some really cute temporary ones. This is weird. I'm a little put off by how many of these have been anomalyless. How ordinary this place has been. Especially all in a row. So there were a lot of anomalies at first. So weird. Oh, I got sneeze cocked. Oh, damn it. Well. Of all the shadows, only one of them has ever sent me back to the first floor. Yay! I got the background. Anomalies found 26 out of 50. I don't know what the reward is for finding all 50 types. I assumed it was like a medal. But I don't know. Alright, let's see what this background looks like. Oh, that's not bad. I'll leave it like that for Spooky Day. And since it's one from KMS, I guess, it actually works with this. Unless they fixed it. No, they did not. Ride or Die doesn't work. Well then. Alright. That's cute. I don't know if I will try finding all 50 anomalies. Like, we still have quite a few days left of the event, but it seems like a lot of work considering that it's random which ones you get. Oopsie, that's not what I meant to do. There's nothing to really stop you from spamming it, I guess, to try to get every anomaly. But I think you have to complete the mansion for the anomalies you've found to count. Okay, so the ETA that I received has arrived, so I am going to end here for today. I might be back sometime on the weekend for Sea of Stars. But as for like Maple and other things, that wouldn't be until Monday or later in the week. So, it is now November 1st. Haha! And tomorrow is Daylight Savings Time. Good luck, everybody. Anyway, thanks for hanging out and keeping me company on Spooky Day, and I will see some of you later.